Hey everyone, it's Adrian from the Pageant Project with you. My special guest for tonight, is a familiar face, Sheridan Mortlock. Now, just before I say hello to Sheridan, I will read out her bio. So for those of you guys watching or listening, you get to know a little bit more about her. So Miss Earth Australia 2022, Sheridan Mortlock, is currently undertaking a double degree in global sustainability and politics. She hopes to one day join Australian politics and to influence more action being taken in Australia towards protecting our environment. She is a WIRES, that stands for Wildlife Information Rescue and Education Service volunteer, and in her spare time likes to play piano, guitar, and discover new places in her community. Sheridan's advocacy for this year's Miss Earth pageant is based on the acronym ACE, which stands for Action, Care, and Education. She believes that it is a mixture of these three components that will bring about the most substantial and sustainable results in our battle against climate change. And you can follow her on Instagram, instagram.com, Sheridan Mortlock official. Sheridan, welcome back. How are you?
I am good, thank you. How are you?
Oh, that was a mouthful. I finally got through it. I was doing all not the research because I know you, but just I did a search on YouTube for Sheridan Mortlock just to see what you've been up to. Have you gotten sick of the Taylor Swift thing yet? It's Taylor Swift lookalike for this and dead ringer for Taylor Swift. And it's like everything about you is Taylor Swift, Taylor Swift, Taylor Swift, Taylor Swift. Has it gotten tired yet?
I'm actually still okay, still holding strong on that one, because since I was 10, I've been told I look like Taylor Swift. And I've always sort of been waiting for that moment where people sort of realize on a more mainstream way. And I feel like that's finally happening. So, I'll have my Taylor Swift moment and hopefully that will draw people's attention in. They'll pay attention to me. And then when I say something about the environment, they'll be able to hear that, listen and take it in. So you got to draw them in however you can, There's like 91 delegates this year. So
And you write your own songs. Have you ever thought of writing, or have you written a song about the environment?
I did when I joined in 2019. That was my talent as a last minute sort of thing. So I grabbed my guitar just quickly. It took like an afternoon and I wrote a song about the earth and the environment. I didn't write it down. So I've totally forgotten what it is, even what the chords were. They were based off a Taylor Swift song, but I think I changed a bit. But I have not really done much songwriting since then.
I was going to get you to see if you could recite or remember what that song was, but clearly
I have tried so many times to remember what it was. I think it was in my notes app at one stage, but I've changed phones since then and I mustn't have transferred over the notes, so lost forever.
That's a shame. How long? So you obviously you're normally based over here in Sydney, Australia. At the moment, you're not in Sydney,
No.
Australia. I will tell you, it stopped raining finally whilst you've been over there.
You know what? It stopped raining there, but it started raining here when I arrived. I took it with me. I'm just like, damn it! I thought it was coming to sunny Philippines.
Yeah, no, it's actually been really nice weather here. Not too warm yet, but it's been nice and dry. But why don't you tell everyone watching, because obviously we'll have some people from Australia and then people from Philippines and everywhere else tuning in, what have you been up to in the last, is it a week? I feel like it's been about a week.
It's been like, it feels like it's been a week, a month, and a day all at the same time somehow. So I flew into the Philippines November 28th, 27th or 29th, one of those days, I forget now. And so during the Miss Earth Australia competition, I actually won the Mega World Australia Ambassadorship Program, and Mega World's based in the Philippines. So for the first 3 days, I was with Mega World, and they're like a real estate company, and they like are building these beautiful big communities around the Philippines. So they took me around, and I got to see quite a lot of the Filipino communities, or the suburbs, I guess, if it was a comparison to what it would be in Australia. So that was really fun and a really great introduction, sort of figure out where I am geographically a bit. And then I've been with Pro Media, who is a group in the Philippines that is helping to train me up and get me super, super prepped for the Miss Earth competition. So I've just been with them after that, and we've just been doing some passerella training, some Q&A, been going to some events. So I was able to go to Mr. and Mrs. Chinatown, which was a smaller pageant here in the Philippines for Filipino Chinese people. And oh my God, even though it was small, Australia, we know pageants are not big here, right? This production for this small pageant was insane. Like, I'm talking screens to the left and the right, like 2 amazing hosts, like confetti, the camera work. Like, I was sitting there like,
Wow,
oh
confetti.
my gosh, confetti. Like, it just came out right at the end. I'm like, oh my God. And it was like falling down. And then Jam, who's she's one of the owners of Pro Media, she was looking at me like, it's not that big. Don't worry about it. But I'm just like, this is amazing.
Well, I'm wondering now, what is it actually going to be like at Miss Earth? Because pretty much as long as I've been following Miss Earth, it's always been virtual. So now it's like, it's kind of weird. It's like, oh, it's actually got an in-person version, well, because it normally is in person. Do you have any idea? I mean, Philippines, we both know is pageant mad. Do you have any idea how big the actual Miss Earth pageant is going to be? Because if that's a small one, what's Miss Earth going to be like?
Massive. I know that it's going to be at the same location as 2019. So that's when Susanna Downs, who was our Miss South Australia 2019, went over. It's in the same location, but with that venue, there actually wasn't much camera work done to the audience. So I don't know how big the audience was, but I'm assuming fairly big. Like, we drove past the hotel that it's going to be at, and it was ginormous. Like, it was like a mall, but bigger, and this is just like a hotel, and there's apparently like a massive fountain inside that it's known for, and it's like one of the biggest fountains. So it looked really impressive, and I can't wait to be able to go in and see it. But then, like, even throughout, before we get to the coronation night, we're going to have like swimwear competitions and long gown competitions where people can still buy tickets and watch it as like a smaller sort of event. So if you can't make it to the big one, you can come see the smaller one, I guess, which is also really new to me and exciting because, you know, it's just one event for the pageants here in Australia, I mean.
How are you feeling about the possibility of walking in front of, well, thousands of people? Is it intimidating? Is it exciting? Is it both?
I feel like it's a bit of both. The good thing is with those stages is the lights are so bright on you that you can barely see the crowd, I find. So, so you can just imagine, you can be like, oh, it's just 100 people, or, oh, you know, if it's better, 1,000. Because I feel like sometimes it's better to have more people, but people that you don't know, because then it's like, you can feel as pressured. Whereas if it's a small crowd of people you do know, you're like, oh my gosh, the stress.
So you'll hopefully be blinded and won't be able to see anyone, and that will help calm your nerves.
Exactly. I'll just be thinking of the Miss Earth song.
It's this time of the year when we all get the Miss Earth songs stuck in our head. Although I feel like they redid it slightly since last time. They made it a bit more upbeat, so it was a little bit different. Guys, I can see a bunch of you watching. So if you have any questions for Sheridan while she's here, put them in the comments and I will pass them on. What's it been like being over in the Philippines? I was watching, I think you had a press conference and you said not only is it your first time in Philippines, but one of the first times being outside Australia. So what has it been like? You said 28th November, so it's been almost 2 weeks. I got to imagine the pace has been pretty manic.
It's actually been less intense than I thought, which is good and bad, because I came over expecting like, all right, a full-on schedule, you know, like up until quite near the end, where then we'll have some rest before the actual competition starts. But it's actually been fairly chill, which has been nice to be able to get me to like assimilate myself in the area that I am. You know, I've been able to go grocery shopping and like check out the mall and check out the local stores, because here there are so many malls like everywhere. Like, we've sort of got like more plazas or outside like streets that you walk, but because it's so hot here, I guess malls are preferred because it's so air conditioned. And so it's been good. I've been able to, you know, go and explore a bit, accidentally buy some things which I don't have room in my suitcase for, so I'm gonna have to deal with that one later.
Accidentally
It's like, oh, this is nice, oh, it's mine now. So we'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Might have to buy another suitcase, but that's okay. I actually borrowed a lot of the stuff that I brought over here. So the suitcases that I have are actually my cousin's, which I borrowed because I don't know if I'll be using them again. But it's been really good. Like, it's been my first time out of the country by myself. So I've been to New Zealand and Japan before, but that was always with someone. So it's sort of different being by myself. I feel a bit like, you know, I nearly want a travel buddy with me to be able to go and explore, but at the same time, I'm not here to travel, you know, I'm here for a pageant. So it's also good to stay in that mindset. And I've been watching some like because I got Philippine Netflix here, so I've been watching a Filipino like romantic comedy at night times when I'm eating, so that's actually been really good, and it's helping me to like understand more like the Filipino culture. I'm trying to pick up the language as I go, but we're gonna have to study that one more.
How are you going with the Filipino language? Because I was re-listening to our interview, and you did a bit of French and Japanese.
Yes.
And now I'm assuming that you picked up some Filipino as well.
I've picked up some basic Tagalog, so things like, maganda umaga, which is good morning, and the most important, salamat po, which is thank you very much, and, kamusta ka, how are you, and, good night, good afternoon, all of that sort of basic stuff. But I'd like to learn more while I'm here, just because, but they speak English here so often that it's like nearly like just the basic ones is sort of all I need, just out of politeness and because I love learning languages. But to try and learn the whole structure and everything like I normally would learning a language, there's just not enough time, it's not necessary because everyone here is just like speaking English anyway. So
they speak really good English
really
as well.
good English.
So
it's pretty much their like unofficial second language.
Well, I think they've always said, not that I've tried this, but the best way to pick up another language is to immerse yourself in it. Basically, just throw yourself into the country. So you've got that happening. Traveling alone is different to traveling with someone, though. I think it's a good opportunity to learn about yourself in a way.
Yes, definitely. I mean, like, I feel a bit self-conscious here at the moment because, like, even when I'm just walking in the mall, like not with my sash or anything, people still looking at me because I'm a foreigner and I'm like tall, white and blonde, So I'm like, are they looking at me because they know I'm a Miss Earth candidate, or are they looking at me because I'm a foreigner, And it's like all eyes are always on me, But it's good and interesting. I'm very much looking forward to when Miss Earth kicks off, because then we do get to actually travel to the different provinces, and it will be, like group settings. So there'll be people that you're with. So that'll be really fun. And then after the competition, I'm planning to stay for a bit longer. So hopefully then I can actually go and travel to some places, or just simply enjoy Manila and just like relax with like a cocktail and just lounge by the pool.
It sounds like you're going to have trouble like having alone time, because it's similar in Japan. And I was speaking to Emma Collingridge, who was Miss Universe GB last year when she went to India. There's something about white girls with blonde hair. You guys are just like, you're fruit to flies for some reason. They're fascinated by it. And they just come up. I don't know if you had this happen in Japan, but literally just people come up to you and ask for a photo. They don't know you. They don't think you're famous, but they just want a photo with someone who has blonde hair.
Oh my gosh. When I was, I think I was 5 or 6 years old, and I was in Cairns, which is like North Queensland.
Yeah.
And there was a bunch of Japanese tourists, and I had been left by the pool by myself because my dad had just popped to the store to get some ice cream. And by the time he came back, there was surrounding of all these Japanese, or they might have been Chinese as well, like a bunch of Asian tourists, all with cameras, like taking pictures of me. And I'm just there in my towel, like, hello, And my dad comes up behind them and he gives one of them like the bunny ears,
Well, at least he took it in a good-natured way, because you could react to that very badly if you're the father of a young girl being photographed by strangers. Now, we've got Grant here. So Ralph, first off, has said, good morning, Adrian and Sheridan. Good luck, Sheridan. You have my full support.
Thank you so much, Ralph.
And then Grant here has a question. Have you met any of the other candidates already?
Yes, I actually just met them today. So Miss Earth, so a couple of the candidates have already been here for a while. We're quite early this year. Got some strong contenders. And so we just went and had a sponsor visit if any of the candidates were available. So I got to meet Philippines, I got to meet Puerto Rico, and I got to meet the Netherlands. And so we all just went and had lunch together. So that was really cool and a great little taster of what's to come. And it's just made me very excited now to meet all of the girls.
When do the actual in-person festivities kick off?
This Saturday. So in like 4 days. So I'm sort of enjoying my alone time while I have it, but I'm also now very, very like looking forward to.
You wanted to get going, right?
I want to get going now. I'm like, okay, I've been here for a while. I feel like I'm prepared. Let's just go. Let's hit the start button and just.
Yeah. Can you just reminisce a little bit on your Miss Earth journey, like dating back, because in 2019 was your first attempt at Miss Earth Australia, and here we are. 3 years, a pandemic, a massive bushfire later. and somehow you've made it. You're in the Philippines. Can you just give us the short overview of what it's been like from 2019, your first time?
Absolutely.
I remember you said you just joined up on a whim, and then
Yes.
suddenly you almost won.
Yes.
And now you're in the Philippines. So trace that journey for us.
Oh my gosh, 5 years ago, me in the Philippines would be like, what are you doing in a pageant? Like, what's happening? So yeah, 2019 I joined on a whim, and then I came runner up, thank gosh, because if I had won that year, I don't know what I would have done, because I had exams the next week. Like, I told this story at the media press tour that I just happened, where I was holding hands with Susanna, and I'm like, please don't pick me. Please don't pick me, because I didn't realize the winner had to go overseas, and they only had like 2 weeks at that stage. I was quite lucky where I had about 2 months with the time limit this year. And so anyway, so glad I didn't win, but I really enjoyed the pageant experience. So I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to do this again. You know, this is something I'm good at. So a trainer reached out to me, and so we've been training, but then COVID hit. So 2020, it was just the runners up. So it was just me, Karen, and Brittany. And then Brittany won that year, and that was a virtual one. And then next year, I was stuck in Wagga Wagga, which is not in Sydney. So I wasn't with my crew. I wasn't with my team. And I'm like, nah, I don't think the fates are aligning for this one. I'll just give it a miss. And then joined this year, 2022. And I felt like everything just fell into place. You know, I moved to Sydney. I paused my studies for the rest of this year. And I just gave it my full attention. Like, okay, this is my last gung-ho effort. If I don't get it this time, then I'm going to lay that chapter, that journey to rest, and just continue with my studies. But if I do get it, then I can give it my all. And now I'm here in the Philippines.
How do you feel you've changed, or have you changed? Have you remained the same person, or have you changed over those 3 years, which seems like 30 years?
I know. I mean, it feels like, if I think back to when I was 19 in 2019, like, I'm 22 now. Like, that's
old.
Like,
it's not old.
It's not old, but it's a period of lots of growth, you know, like your late teens to your mid-20s. I think it's just so much happens. And so I definitely feel like I've experienced more as a person. I'm definitely I've had more experiences, more grown. Obviously, I've still got heaps of growing to do, but if I was to go up against 2019 me to 2022 me, and we were both to compete in the same pageant, 2019 me would have no chance. Like, the amount of stuff that I've learned since joining about pageants, you know, about the Philippines, about just everything, and then also just about life, like just living life and just having those experiences, you know, like with friendship breakups, with, you know, university, with stresses, with moving to a big city by myself. All of this has really helped me to grow as well, and like face those little like resilience training, and built me as a character. So I definitely feel more sturdy and definitely more sure of myself this year than if I was to have won in 2019.
You feel ready for the big title then? If you're lucky enough to have it put on your head?
You know, I just keep envisioning it. Every night before I go to bed, I just like pretend to put on my crown.
What's the first thing you would do if you had that crown placed on your head?
Oh my gosh. So assuming this is after all of the media tours and everything the first thing that I would want to do is definitely straight away start an Instagram live series where I get to talk to people all over the world about a specific climate initiative that they're working on, something positive, because I feel like there's so much negativity, and I feel like we really need some positivity, and there's so many experts everywhere like doing great things. For example, like growing coral in the oceans, or helping with sustainable farming, or, you know, there's just so many little amazing, interesting bits happening at the moment that we just don't hear about. So I really want to be able to talk to them and give them a bit of a voice and a platform, and hopefully, you know, inspire others to keep fighting for climate change and, you know, protecting the environment.
That's amazing. Now, Ralph has asked the question. We kind of answered it. What was your maybe not. What was your inspiration to join Miss Earth Australia? Because we said it was kind of on a whim. And what is your advocacy? Which is a good thing, because I was going to ask you that. So what was your inspiration and what is your advocacy?
So when I first joined in 2019, as I mentioned, I didn't know anything about pageants. I just wanted to do something to get me outside of my comfort zone and sort of grow me more. So I just literally Googled Australian pageants and applied for any that were open. Miss Earth happened to get back to me first, but I remember as applying, I'm like, oh, this is actually what I'm studying. This is great.
Yeah.
You know, this would be perfect. And then as I was doing the pageant, I was reading more about it. I'm like, oh, this pageant is actually really, really cool. And I love what it's about. And then I learned more about the other pageants like Universe and World. And I'm like, okay, if I was to do another pageant, I'd probably still do Miss Earth, because even if I joined the other ones, I'd still be advocating for the environment, because that is what I'm so passionate about. Like, I'm dedicating my whole life to it pretty much, like with my studies and then wanting to get into politics to push for more environmental legislation. So Miss Earth was like a sort of really great starting point and launching pad for that. And then my advocacy this year is based on the acronym ACE, which stands for Action, Care and Education. Usually when people pick advocacies, it's something specific like water conservation or replanting forests. And that is all super, super great. But with what I've studied, I've found that everything is sort of very much connected like a spider's web. And so, you know, if you make one change in the environment, it doesn't just affect that one sector. It sort of has ripple out effects and affects a lot of different sectors. And so I sort of wanted to encapsulate that all in my advocacy. And so with ACE, these are the three most important things that people need to be doing to help with the climate crisis. So action, obviously, is one of the most important ones. And that's, you know, getting out there, you know, voting or protesting for change or just planting a tree or, you know, anything that's an action that's working towards helping the planet. Care, this is really special because care is reconnecting with nature and finding that love for it, because if you're not connected to nature, if you're not seeing it every day, if you're not impacted by it, then it's hard to fight for something that you feel like you're not connected to or there's no reason to. So even just spending like 5 minutes in a park or 5 minutes just outside looking at, I don't know, the clouds each day, just to help ground you and just to be grateful and to remember that, you know, nature is what gives us life. You know, without nature, we don't have food, we don't have air, we don't have water. It is all the biodiversity and all of the beautiful, beautiful, mysterious magic of the ecosystems that is keeping us alive and well and how we can still live today. So to be able to have that connection and find that connection, because everybody has one, you know, whether it even just be like, oh, I really love strawberries. That's a connection to nature because strawberries come from nature. So if that's what you care about and that's what you want to protect, then that's still a connection to the environment. And then education is the third one. And education is knowing what, why, and how, because without the proper education, some of the action that we do could actually be more detrimental than helpful. So before we take any action, we first need to be educated or at least have an understanding of why we're taking that action and what that will mean and what the consequences are. So this includes for politicians, for instance, or for world leaders, consulting experts, because sometimes world leaders don't have all the answers because it is such a complicated spider-webby topic. You need to have that education there. You don't necessarily have to know it, but just knowing where to find it and be able to, you know, bring that all in so that you can make a better informed decision. And so that's ACE. And so with all of those three things, we can ACE climate conservation.
Really, I think the education, it's a really important and overlooked part. It's like the unsexy part because no one really wants to spend the time educating themselves. You know, that's why everything is clickbait headlines right now. But I don't know if you've had any thoughts, for example, on the war in Ukraine against Russia, and a lot of that is predicated on gas. And then Europe, for example, going into winter being so heavily dependent on Russian gas. And then the war in Ukraine has caused them to up the ante with their renewables. But at the same time, then that you're talking about the spider web, the problem then is for poor people who are always the most affected by changes such as that. Did you have any? I mean, obviously, the war is a big deal, and it's based largely on fossil fuel, which we're trying to phase out. Do you feel like that's a good representation of how complicated an issue can be?
Absolutely. Like, you know, wars especially are usually always about resources. And the problem is that our resources that we're so used to using, which is like single-use resources, fossil fuels, are starting to
Fine.
they're like
Disappear.
dying out, disappearing, or they're, no longer allowed to be used because of all the other problems and the domino effect that causes. And so, things like this are just a perfect example of that. And especially where it's impacting those less fortunate, because unfortunately, the ones that are most hard hit by climate change are the people that are probably doing the least to perpetrate it. And it's those that have the money and the power and the infrastructure to be able to actually help the climate that are usually causing the most damage. And so it's just an example of this unfairness, which again comes back down to just being educated on it. And then just caring is also, like all of that connection, caring for people as well, because people are nature. And then hopefully being able to take action, whether even if that's just something like signing a petition, every small thing can help.
Is that part of the reason why you wanted to go into politics, is to affect change? I was speaking to someone else. She was motivated. She wanted to, at the time, become a police officer because she discovered that she was hugely motivated by fairness. And she was working in some completely unrelated, like a desk job, commercial job. Then she decided, I want to be a police officer because I'm motivated by fairness. What are your motivations going into politics? Like, what got you interested in that?
So it's a funny roundabout way that I realized I wanted to be a politician, because originally I wanted to be an actor. And
slightly different.
And I realized that the only reason I wanted to be an actor is because I looked up to these two particular actors because it was my favorite TV show at the time, Supernatural. So it was Jared Padalecki and Jensen Ackles. And they were doing this whole thing with their platform where they were speaking up about mental health, and they were bringing a lot of awareness to the platform. And I'm like, one day I want to be so famous as an actor that I can do that. And then I'm like, well, I don't have to try and struggle to be an actor to help and have a platform and, make people's lives better. I can do that. Like, there's a job for that. That's what a politician is supposed to do, So I'm like, let's just do that. And so it was definitely the thing that most motivated me to join politics is definitely the environment side. I grew up with the environment, and I saw how legislation either helped or hindered my community, which was mainly farmers and agriculture, and just seeing all the, growing up in a social media age, you saw on your phone, just swiping on Facebook or anything, the impacts that climate change has. And so that sort of first going into, what is this climate change thing? It just stirred something inside of me. And Australia is such a beautiful and diverse country in terms of our biodiversity. And we have so much that we should be able to protect here, and we just aren't. And so it was that sort of like nearly anger or like disappointment that we could be doing so much as a nation and we're not, because of big fossil fuel companies or those sorts of powers. And so that sort of was like, okay, let's get into politics. Let's, I want to be able to fix this pretty much. And I know that's very idealistic, but, aim high and shoot for the moon and land among the stars, as they say. And so really, that motivated to be like, I can't just sit here and do nothing about it. So it's nearly like, in a sense, like I'm choosing politics because I can't pick anything else, nearly. Like there are so many things happening in the world. And if I was to just sit at another job or do something else that's not working towards it, I would just feel so like there's a calling, nearly, like I just need to do something.
I was going to say that I think calling is appropriate, and I think in a way that you're fortunate or lucky that you discover what your calling is, because a lot of people go through life not knowing what that is. And certainly we could do with more leadership. We don't necessarily need more politicians, but we need more leadership and authenticity and honesty and integrity in our politicians. I mean, there've been some horrible examples recently. I think the latest the second latest UK Prime Minister, she lasted 44 days or something like that. She came out with her economic policy. You were talking about relying on people who know what they're talking about. She came out with this economic policy, opened her mouth, pound plunged, and she was out of office in 44 days. She had someone said she had the shelf life of a lettuce. So we do need more people in charge, I think, who really want to make a difference and know what they're doing. Let's diverge for a second and let's look at some of the videos that have been up. So which one would you like to do first? The gown or the parrot?
Let's do the swift parrot.
Okay, and I will mute it just because I don't know if the Miss Earth song is
Copyright
struck. So I'll add it. You can talk us through it. We can have a look. Let's see how this works here.
So this was the national, not the national costume, but the so each candidate had to pick an animal that they wanted to represent. So this was the fauna costume. And so I picked the swift parrot, which is a critically endangered parrot. It's the world's fastest flying parrot. It goes at like 88 kilometers an hour or some crazy speed. And so there's only about 750 left. Reports saying even less. So they're very critically endangered. They're only in Tasmania and sort of southeast Australia, so like Melbourne sort of area. And they're very impacted because of the logging and also the sugar gliders that were introduced there in the 1800s. And so the reason I picked the swift parrot is, people say I look like Taylor Swift. So I'm like, excellent, swift parrot. Hopefully people will remember the fauna that I picked. And if people remember the name, then there is still a chance for them to help me with it and help, spread the word about the bird, as I have continued to say, because, they could definitely become extinct within the next 10 years, which is just a very sad example of a lot of the Australian fauna at the moment, which is very critically endangered and endangered, especially wasn't helped by the bushfires of 2019. So I just, I was going to pick, like the koala or the kangaroo or something more iconic, but I just really think that these little birds and these little animals that aren't very popular in Australia really need international recognition as well, so that hopefully the government will put some legislation in place, help to stop that logging and rehabilitate the swift parrot.
I like the thinking behind it, tying it in with your lookalike and then spread the word for the bird. Can you tell us a little bit about how the costume actually came together? Because whenever I see costumes that look like this, I'm like, where like how did that conversation start? It's like you approach a designer and say, I want you to dress me up as a parrot, and they'd be like, prank call.
This was designed by Renee, and he is so talented. His work's actually going into the Powerhouse Museum next year.
Oh wow.
He's done lots and lots of costumes for like Mardi Gras and things like that. So very extravagant, beautiful, detailed costumes. And so he was already brought on when I won Miss South Australia as the designer, and so he actually had already sort of had a design where he wanted to do a black cockatoo, but I told him like, I've already picked my fauna and I want it to be a swift parrot, so that was very easy to sort of transition it being a bird to a bird. And so all of the feathers here are made from this like foam that he uses in a lot of things, and he just like cuts it to make that feather effect, and he puts it all, he like glues it all onto this like piece that was here, and like this amazing headpiece that was massive. Like it's huge, like it looks big in the video, but like it's even bigger in person. And so that was really beautiful. And then we really wanted to use the chiffon as the wings so that we could have that sort of like flying effect, of like it being like about movement, because the swift parrot is such a fast bird. That's its main thing. Tried to jump off a tree. It didn't really look good. So we just went for twirling around on the floor instead.
If you're dressed as a parrot, you're not actually a parrot. You don't have the power of flight. I was going to say, how on earth did you take it to the Philippines? But this was filmed in Australia. Because the first thing I looked at this is like, how on earth did you get that out in the suitcases? How tall is the headpiece? It looks like a good foot and a bit above your head.
Yeah, I don't know exactly the measurements of my head, but like it's like it's big. Like I had to lie it down in the back seat of my car, and it pretty much really took up the whole thing, because like the feather at the very top, you can't bend it or anything, so you've got to just lay it down like a baby and just keep it there. But that big blue check on it is very close attention to detail, which I really appreciate, because the swift parrot, even though it's predominantly green and red, it's got those blue markings and those yellow markings, all along the face and under the wings, which is sort of what makes it iconic. And then as you can see at the bottom there on the skirt, we've got the longer feathers, because the swift parrot is also known for its super long tail at the back of it. So Renee was really good at keeping all of that attention to detail. This took him 700 hours to create, and it's just so beautiful, and it was just so shimmery. And we were filming it at the park, and people were walking past like, what on earth is going on? And I'm just like, hi. I think I might have scared a 5-year-old by accident, but
that's great.
Okay.
So there's a 5-year-old out there somewhere who's going to have
Like, what is
PTSD
this?
about parrots.
Yeah.
There are a few people out there actually who are terrified of birds, but I'm not one of them. But
Well,
so
that's good. This has been a very awful segment for you.
700 hours, huh? That's something.
Yeah, so very, very limited. The biggest problem is logging, obviously, because the swift parrots only breed in Tasmania. So they're a migratory bird, much like the orange belly parrot here. So they breed in Tassie, and then in winter they come over to the mainland to eat and escape the harsh Tasmanian winter. And every time they go back, they're noticing more and more trees are cut down, so they can't actually build their nests. And then when they do finally build their nests, sugar gliders come and eat their eggs and often kill the female parrots that are roosting there in the process. So even though sugar gliders are native to Australia, they were never in Tasmania until they were introduced. Right. And so because the swift parrots only breed in Tasmania, that's where that sort of clashing of environment occurs. So, there's a lot of great organizations, not-for-profits and things out there trying to protect the swift parrots, but you just can't stop things like logging, which is just there's a lot of business behind it, and there's a lot of permits and stuff that they just can't get around. So hopefully by bringing this attention on a more international scale, and do have a petition on my Instagram page at the moment that you can click on in the bio to help sign, to hopefully bring more awareness as well. Hopefully there can be something done about it. Once I get back to Australia, I'd really love to visit Melbourne or Tasmania as well and just be able to see one in person, because that would just be so beautiful. I've actually got a swift parrot pin on my sash here, which I got from a local Tasmanian family-owned business, and so that was really cool that they have those because it's such a rare bird.
Yeah, well, that's very cool. I remember because I was rewatching our interview from last time. You said that you wanted there to be a story behind. You actually mentioned that you might get garbage from the sea and just stick it together in a dress. So I'm glad we didn't go with that one. And in fact, you went with this. I think this is better than garbage from the sea.
Yes. I mean, look, Renee is very talented, and I wasn't going to say, no, Renee, I don't want your beautiful designs. I want to get some trash and stick it on.
It was your idea, not mine. Let's have a look at the gown then. So here we are. Talk us through this.
So this is my national costume. And so I wish that they would have played voiceovers or something for this one, because there's just so much about it that you just don't pick up from watching it. Because when you do look at it, it's just like, oh, it's just a gown. But the reason that I picked this gown was because the designer, Paul McCann, he's an Indigenous Australian man, and he's been doing very well in the Fashion Week and with his all of his beautiful creations recently in Melbourne. I remember in 2020 or 2019, he had this really iconic gumnut ball gown, which I remember looking at and being like, if I ever join Miss Earth again, if I win, I want one of his creations as the national costume. And so this particular one is called Silver Lining, and it's depicting sort of a heavy rainfall and lightning onto the ground. So the sequins in the main body and just under the belt, the zigzags are the lightning. And then we've got underneath that part the hand-painted country and beautiful, delicate little bush flowers. And so I've interpreted is, our country is, there's a lot of desert and there's a lot of harsh landscapes. And so the silver lining, though, is that there will always be that downfall. There will always be that, even though it's like lightning and it might be strong, it sort of contrasts the beautiful and delicate and unexpected nature that we do have here, which is represented by the bush flowers. And so it also gives a second chance and a new beginning, that rain after such a long, long time, because we've had many, many droughts here in Australia as well, even though we're an island where there's a lot of land that is not at all connected to any ocean. And so there was that. And then also the other reason that I picked this as a national costume was because for the international viewers who might not know, Indigenous Australians or First Nations people of Australia actually have not been treated well at all by our governments over the past, since we arrived on Invasion Day. So I really wanted to give a space to our Indigenous artists and show, the talent that they have. And so Paul actually explained to me that the outline of this, the silhouette is also, he said, based on wanting to get a treaty for the First Nations people and, get that representation. And so I sort of also wanted to bring that with me, because as Australia, I couldn't just ignore our First Peoples because they are Australia, you know, like obviously I can't wear, as a white Australian, like a traditional Indigenous, you know, what they would wear, but I can wear some beautiful art and design that has been created by them and help to spread the message that, you know, we need a First Nations treaty and we need that representation, because it's been far, far too long. And there's so much beautiful, beautiful culture that we're just like, we barely learn about Indigenous culture in primary school as we're growing up. It's all about the convicts and what the English did when they were over here. But we barely touch on, you know, the only thing we learn is like the Dreamtime stories and the Rainbow Snake, and that's it. And I think that's just very, very sad. You know, we really should be able to connect with the First Nations people more and, you know, make space for them, because there is plenty of space to be had. So I just really wanted to try and represent that. But obviously that's hard to do with just a video of a dress. So I did put in my captions on Instagram and everything, trying to spread it. But, you know, sometimes people just don't want to read things.
I mean, that's just the world we live in, isn't it? I mean, given the thought and the meaning behind it. I mean, I even love the name Silver Lining as the metaphor, because there's a lot of things that happen here in Australia with nature that a lot of people from overseas look at and think, oh, it's a tragedy. For example, bushfire, which it is, but then they don't understand simultaneously that some of our flora actually relies on having bushfires in order to be able to reproduce and propagate. So it's like what you said with the spider web. It all comes back to that. Nature is, as much as us humans try to muck it up, nature is so intricately woven that you know, you have the lightning, and we've had droughts. Obviously, we had the bushfires before the pandemic, and then we've had massive floods. So it's
something that I focused on with the dress, in the caption also, is there's a thing called caring for country, which is the Indigenous practice where basically, you know, they're spiritually sort of connected to the land, and, you know, they care for country. You know, it's like an obligation nearly to give back to the land. And so even things such as, like you mentioned with the bushfires, like they would go and do purposeful burning of some of the land because they knew and they understood that that was what the land needed. And we've just, by shutting out all of that knowledge that is just, there's like Indigenous Australians are the oldest culture in the world, like over 65,000 years. And we're just completely ignoring all of that, which could really help us also in, you know, when we're trying to learn about climate change, because really it's all about history and the knowledge and the education that you have, but also that care, because you need to have that care and that connection. Otherwise you just don't care, you know, there's no motivator.
Well, I mean, they lived in harmony with the country, with nature for tens of thousands of years. Whereas I feel these days, a lot of people, the first thing they do, buy a new house, buy a new apartment, if you can afford that. And the first thing that I see so many people do is go inside, close all the blinds, close all the curtains, and they just live inside a box, a concrete box. Exactly. And I'm just like, I don't understand. I mean, here in Australia, I do feel, and I'll be fascinated to hear your perspective on this after you've met the other delegates, that obviously in Australia, one of the best parts is nature.
Yes.
It's so easy for us to want to go outside, because whether it's the beach, the bush, whatever it is, we love being outside. And I think sometimes we take that for granted, because not every country is like that.
I mean, even just being here, like there's greenery, like I can look out and see it, but it's all on buildings. Like there's no parks in just this area. Like there is parks in the Philippines, but as I'm in a business district, you know, there's not really any parks when I walk. And I didn't realize that until about 2 days ago. I'm like, I'm feeling off, you know, like
you'd miss it.
Yeah, I miss just being able to do that, because even in our business district, like Martin Place, for instance, in Sydney, you only have to walk like a couple hundred meters to one at like Hyde Park.
You got Hyde Park.
Massive park where it's just, you know, for the middle of the city, you can just sit and just be surrounded by nature. And that definitely is why I feel like so many Australians is just so passionate about conservation.
Yeah. Well, I love the parrot, but I think I love even more the meaning behind the national costume. And I do love the fact that, well, I love the fact that you're able to actually tell us what the meaning behind it is, because as you said, not everyone reads captions. We just look at pretty pictures, pretty pictures, pretty pictures, pretty pictures.
It's like,
If you're lucky, you get a
gown?
like. Yeah, but no, good on you. That's obviously had a lot of thought put into it. And what was the name of the designer? Paul McCann.
Yeah.
McCann.
So
Whereabouts is he based?
he's in Melbourne. So this
Right.
dress I'm wearing actually just got off Melbourne Fashion Week, and then he shipped it immediately to me. And then I had it for the day, and then I shipped it back. Oh, actually, one of his stylists came and picked it up. But like,
Right.
I messaged him, I think just before the Miss South Australia competition, being like, hey, so if I win this pageant, like I explained it to him, like, is it possible to use one of your designs? And he's like, oh, hey, you know, like, yeah, that sounds great. I'm just super busy with Melbourne Fashion Week at the moment. Let me get back to you. But Melbourne Fashion Week didn't end until about 5 days before I had to leave to the Philippines. And I was sort of like, I had a backup plan, but this is what I felt is what I needed. Like, this is like the only one that I could have done, like in my heart and in my soul, you know? And so I sent him another message like 2 days or the day after Melbourne Fashion Week ended. And I'm like, hey, so are you still interested? And then he's like, yeah, what's your number? Let's have a chat. And then the next day, like, express shipped it. And I was just like, the stars truly aligned for this one. And I was just so over the moon because I've been dreaming about wearing, one of Paul's dresses for like 2 years now. And to be able to finally do that and represent it internationally, I was just like, yes.
Do you feel the stars are aligning for you at all? I don't normally talk about destiny and whether it's predestined, but you entered in 2019, didn't win, which you were happy about.
I was happy
Then
about
we had the pandemic, and you entered, and the first time that we're having it in person for a few years, you got the dress. You've been able to take time off study to go over there. Things seem like, and I'm watching. I've seen the hot pics. You're obviously you're on the radar for a lot of people. Does it kind of feel like things are coming together as much as they can?
It does, to be honest. And like, I love zodiac signs and astrology and star signs. And so, as much as the stars are definitely, I feel like, aligning for this competition, like, it's just perfect timing with nearly everything in my life at the moment that it's happening right now. And to be able to even go over earlier to train with Pro Media and to have that extra exposure, it's just like, like pieces falling into place. But I don't know if you know anything about, there's like astro charts where you can like chart your map sort of thing. So you get a map of the world, and there's like little lines that indicate, depending on like your star sign and when you were born, etc., that can indicate in these specific geographic locations, you'll either, have more luck in this, or you'll feel this way, or blah, blah, blah. And there's these 3 that all correspond right next to the Philippines. And like, one of them is, you'll have a lot of help here, and, people will want to help you and look after you. The second one was, you'll get a lot of fame and attention. And the third one was like, you'll get unexpected advancements in something. I don't know, it was all that sort of vibe. And I'm like, well, that just sounds like the perfect little concoction for a possible win. So, it's sort of nice, even if it's obviously like not true or anything, it's sort of nice to just feel like that sort of got some control. So I sort of, sit back and be like, you know what? The stars will figure this out, because even if I don't win, this is such a great experience, and I'm sure many, many beautiful opportunities will come from it. Obviously, the plan is to bring home Australia's first Miss Earth crown, and that is the ultimate goal always. But I just really want to enjoy the experience as well, and just not be too stressed and hung up on that, because otherwise I might miss what's happening right now.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, you definitely want to take it in, because it really is a once in a lifetime journey. Let's just circle back to the comments. Lil here has asked a few questions, so let me just go through this. So she's asked, are there any other Miss Earth candidates training with Pro Media?
No, so I'm the only Miss Earth candidate, and I'm their first international candidate that they're training. So they've only trained Philippine candidates so far, as they're based here. And so they saw me and they're like, you know what? Let's give an international candidate a go, and if it goes well, then we'll be able to train more.
Also asked, do people recognize you when you walk in the malls of Manila?
Well, there's still face masks are very big over here, so I'm always wearing my face mask. And I got, actually, it was so nice, Mega World, one of the staff members there, he got me these chains, which is very popular in the Philippines that you put on your mask
Oh, wow.
so that when you're eating or something, you can just wear it like that.
Oh.
It's like this cute little accessory. But people, I feel like, haven't recognized me. If they have, again, I can't tell if they're waving at me because they know I'm Miss Earth Australia or if it's because I'm
you're
foreign. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I'm
It's
wearing the
hard to
sash,
tell.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Were you surprised that so many people showed up to your press conference? It says a few years ago up there. It says a few days ago.
I was like, I'd never done a press conference before, so I didn't really know what to expect because pageants aren't a thing in Australia.
Yeah.
But it was a really, really awesome experience, and I was definitely, I was very, very thankful. It was very humbling in that moment to be able to walk in and know that everybody is there just for you. It's not like the competition where they show up because it could be any candidate. Yeah. Like, these people took time out of their day just to come here and
there was a giant backdrop of you behind you.
I know,
wasn't there?
that was so, I was like, I didn't even take that in on the day.
Me.
I was just like, oh, that's me. Okay. Like, I should actually follow up on that and be like, can I take that home? Like,
yeah.
Can I keep that?
The stuff or the shopping, take the backdrop home.
Yes, just leave everything else.
Yeah.
But it was really, really good. And I thank again Pro Media for organizing that, because it was not easy to, organize everybody's schedules like that and do it, sort of very last minute. And I was very happy with, the amounts of questions that the press were asking me. And, I'm really hoping that they got to see a bit more of me, and, I got to connect with them and have a bit of a laugh afterwards at their table. So yeah, it was a very enjoyable experience, and I can't wait for the one that's happening with the Miss Earth with all the other candidates.
Perfect. We'll have one more from Lil. She's asked, did you know Catriona Gray?
I know of her, but I've never met her in person. Catriona Gray, I lived, I think, in Perth or WA, which is on the other side of Australia. So this is Sydney, this is WA. And WA is very disconnected from the rest of Australia. Or maybe she lived in Queensland. I know she didn't live in Sydney, Melbourne area.
Yeah.
But I also know that she moved to the Philippines quite early on to study for the pageants and stuff. So it was sort of, I just missed that sort of Catriona Gray craze. I only found out about it after I joined Miss Earth. And when I was researching, she obviously came up quite a lot because she's just so incredible. But hopefully I can meet her one day. That would be very, very cool.
Oh, perfect. Ralph here has said, great show and interview. Catch you later tomorrow morning, my time, I'm interviewing one of the Miss Earth USA candidates, Michaela. Thanks for tuning in, Ralph. Well, it's been a minute. Just before we get to the end, do you want to give anyone a shout out? I've got to imagine there's lots of people. I can just take a rest here for 10 minutes and you can run the show now.
Let me just write my list. Well, first of all, a big shout out to all of the people in Australia that are supporting me and watching me through this. Thank you to, my family and all my friends there. I know that I've got your support, and it's just so hectic and crazy and different, but I can't wait to celebrate with you all when I get back. Big thank you, of course, to Pro Media for taking a chance on me and taking me on board and training me up and showing me the Philippines before the competition starts. Very, very always appreciative, and thank you for that. And then thank you, of course, to Miss Earth and the organization, and to everybody involved with that for putting together such a spectacular and crazy event. I'm very much looking forward to it. And just thank you to all of my Instagram followers and my Facebook followers and my followers that aren't on any social media platforms, but they follow my journey through other people, such as, my mum's friends. Hi, thank you. But yeah, anyone just following and supporting, thank you so much. And I know that there's so many more people that I, thank and support later for your just amazing, amazing faith and belief in me. And I hope that I can make you all proud on the Miss Earth International stage.
Sure you will. We're going to zip through the final 10 questions. We've got to do them in about under 5 minutes, because otherwise this recording is too long for me to replay it, and I want to replay it later on. All right, so final 10 questions. Number 1, what is your favorite word?
Burgundy.
Number 2, what is your least favorite word?
Pumpernickel.
Number 3, in life, what gets you excited? What turns you on?
Mangoes.
Question 4, what turns you off?
Gross mangoes.
Question 5, what sound or noise do you love?
Ooh. I really love, those like the seeds or the things at supermarkets and they're like vacuum sealed, and then you get your nails and you like run across them and it's like. I really love that sound.
Question 6, what sound or noise do you hate?
Nails on a chalkboard or nails scratching jeans or anything like that.
Okay. Number 7, if you could have any one superpower, what would you pick and why?
Same one as before. I would like to be able to refill things. So, for example, you've got like a chip packet you just finished. Bam, that's full. Your car has run out of petrol. Just tap it.
Can you do my car, please? I'm sick of paying so much for fuel. That'll be very, very handy. Question 8, what job other than your own would you most like to attempt?
Prime Minister of Australia.
And question 9, what job would you definitely not like to attempt?
A lawyer.
Final question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I would like to hear him say, you did a fantastic job and it's only going to get better from here.
I think these questions are much better when you can't explain your answers and we can just start thinking about, mangoes. She must have been eating mangoes. Anyway, let's leave it there for round 2. Sheridan, thank you so much for your time and obviously a huge best of luck for the rest of the competition.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
And I'll keep you on the line for just a sec whilst I hang up with the audience. Thanks to everyone for watching live on the replay. That petition that Sheridan talked about is in an Instagram bio, so you can go check that at Sheridan Mortlock Official. And we will speak to you next time. Bye for now. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Sorority Access is now open. So if you'd like to join an amazing group of women and learn how to be the most powerful, confident, and impactful queen possible, head to thepageantsorority.com. I'll see you there and see you in the next video.